master's degree in nuclear engineering. I'm not so hip on nuclear or engineering, but I know I want a job. A smart young man.
Obviously.
And so we start talking about the market, and every nuclear engineer job wants a postdoc. He said, should I go back to school? I said, no. Postdocs make $30,000 a year for 7 years. And at the end of that, all they're good for is going and teaching in a college or something like that. And I said, you said you don't want to do that. I said, no. So I said to him, you have to find a place where there are fewer people applying for the job than there are jobs, because then we know you've got a great chance. So he took every single thing I asked him to do, and after about 3 or 4 weeks at working together, he comes back and he says, I found it. What is it? He said, Hadron Colliders. Really? I thought about that this morning at breakfast. What? Yeah. And sure enough, there are 3 colliders in the U.S. They have to hire in groups of 3 because they have to go 24/7, so everybody has an 8-hour shift.
I see.
And there's only about 5 people applying for those jobs. He got an interview at every single place he applied, started working at Cornell in October, and they were so impressed with him, he practiced. He practiced so hard that they actually gave him a promotion before they hired him. They hired him as a number 2 instead of
That's
a 1.
fabulous.
And so now there weren't many jobs. There were just a few jobs.
Right.
So if we understand the numbers, there's 5,000 jobs and 50,000 people are going for those jobs. Those aren't good numbers for somebody, you know?
Right.
So if the person says to me, but that's what I really, really want, I say back to them, okay, then we've got to have a strategy.
Sure.
That's so absolutely incredible that you're one of the people that get the jobs.
It makes complete sense. You know, there's so many people that have the mentality of, you know, thank God it's Friday, oh crap, it's Monday. And it's hard to get ahead doing that consistently.
Yes.
And what you're talking about in the book, and I know you do this with all of your clients at Forward Motion, is to take a long-term view, to try and think out strategically, taking into what you want to do plus what's going on in the market, geography-wise, trend-wise, and the like. It makes complete sense. And so one of the parts of the book that I really, really liked is you talked about essential career concepts for this career code in the 21st century. So one of them is take a long-term view. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that a little bit, but you don't think that somebody should just be focused on, so for example, let's say I needed a job and I'm looking for a job. I can come to you or use, just do myself. I try and find a job. But your point is, once you find a job, you should be thinking about how you could excel in that job, how you could advance in that job, and if you need to make a move, what the next move. You're progressing out the timeline, and you strongly urge people to think beyond just, oh, I got a job, I could just relax.
Right. So one of the first things we talk about is a job should be satisfying, sustainable. That's that Friday, oh good, it's Friday, oh awful, it's Monday. Sustainable, I can do it week after week after week. And it should meet their financial needs. And that's really important to what you do as well, because I tell people, what do you really need? Now add 30% to that, because I want them to have some enough to give away to help others, and I want them to have some to put away for the future.
Beautiful.
And I talk to them about those exact things. I mean, you're going to need that 30%. Help some other people, but prepare for your future. We don't know what's going to go on there. So those are 3 parts to it. And the other piece of it is the network. People are going to need to be known as experts, specific experts. And we need to have a group of people, of experts that we know. And this whole networking thing, when someone needs someone, oh, you need to call Joe because he's really outstanding at fixing trucks, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So the network is becoming even more critical, and social media makes that a lot easier.
Yes. You talk about that connectivity. You also talk about collaboration over competition, which is a little bit of a generational thing, and it's one of the changes in the world today where we tend not to be as competitive, I think, just as maybe we were generations past. Mm-hmm. And collaboration in today's complex, fast-pacing world is really crucial. we see it here at Elliott Wealth. Although I'm the founder and the owner, there's so much that goes on that I need to collaborate with my team constantly. It can't just be top down, I know everything, and I filter it through the small business that we have. So can you talk about your views in this job, career situation we're in the Western world about collaborating over competition and how that can help you survive and thrive in your career?
Well, even in Forward Motion, so my business coach lives in the UK. We connect for hours every week. But another contributor to the book is a top recruiter, an executive recruiter from Kennedy Executive. And Jorg is German, living in Paris. And we have another person that we tap into who's in Australia. And he's a stitch. He's in the hospitality industry and has 790,000 Twitter followers. And is incredibly well known.
Wow.
So, I can say to him, would you retweet this? And he says yes, and all of a sudden 300 people show up on my website. Mm-hmm. It's that fast. So we are global, and we are well connected with that. Now, when I'm working with people, I tell people at a certain point, this is going to mimic what I think you may do as well. So I say to them, you need 3 recruiters or so that know who you are, know your expertise. And I want you to call them, say, once a quarter, 3-4 times a year, and say, who are you looking for? Maybe I can help. Because this person should have a cadre of experts that they can recommend that they know are going to come through. And also, if they lose their job and they need help, that person's going to be there for them. Mm-hmm. And then I say, as you move through your career, make sure some of these people are younger than you. Because you don't want to call a recruiter who said, I'm just kind of closing everything down right now because I'm getting ready to retire. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you have some recruiters that are early and mid recruiters in terms of their career so that they're keeping an eye out as well. So this collaboration with friends, with recruiters, with hiring professionals, important.
Makes sense. Switching gears slightly, there's so much information out there and some of the technology things and globalization and offshoring and the political culture. So some of the stuff is kind of out there in the public domain. Can you cite some common misconceptions about the future of jobs, some things that maybe most people think is true, but you and Neil would think is not really so true and is a misconception?
Sure. There's a sense that, all the jobs are going to leave. Technology is going to take all the jobs, and I'm not going to be able to do anything. And there's no truth to that. Jobs are leaving the workplace. This blows me down, this statistic. 3 out of 4 jobs that exist today are going to be taken over by technology that already exists. That's pretty frightening.
Yes.
What it doesn't incorporate is that there's other jobs that are going to be coming through.
Sure.
So understanding that there's types of jobs, for example, project management. Well, project management, in every industry, there's going to be a need for people to manage projects. There's a people element, a risk management that's not data-based risk, where we need somebody in the moment who can make a decision about how something can move forward. So user experience is another one. Customer experience, user experience, client. That's huge because the companies are in such competition. The companies that are going to get ahead are the companies that understand that the experience of their customers is what's going to build loyalty. And if they can't get that across, that user experience is everything.
That's right. Because it's easy to talk about, and it's very easy to identify. We talked about drivers, and you just mentioned careers that are in jeopardy. We talked about travel agents that have gone by the wayside. Mm-hmm. But, I have some relatives that are graduating from college, young individuals, and they're going into the workplace, and they're doing things where those jobs didn't even exist when they went into college. Mm-hmm. And that's that pace of change we're talking about, yes. The technological advancement. But that should continue also. My daughter is going to be a freshman in college next year. Mm-hmm. And, we talk about, well, what do you want to do? And people are so polite. They meet her and they say, Marissa, what are you going to study in school? What do you want to do? And it's a normal question, but it puts pressure on the 17-year-old because she feels like, well, if everybody's asking, maybe I ought to know. And I'm like, Marcia, you don't need to know. It's perfectly fine. I counsel her, just say, I'm not sure what I want to do, but I'm anxious to go and learn, grow up, experience new things. You'll be fine. But probably the job she'll end up doing, or at the very least how it's done, hasn't even gotten figured out yet.
Yes, I've worked with people who started college, and by the time they graduated, nothing existed. And one fellow ended up, smart guy, ended up in New York City at a bike shop. And while he was there, he learned the entire New York City transit system and so forth. But he's a teacher. At heart, he's a teacher.
Right.
And he wanted to write. Well, that wasn't going to work. So we are finding that. What my suggestion is with young people is understanding the kinds of things they enjoy doing and then investigating careers in those kinds of things. Careers in relationship management, for example. Well, I like my friends, and I like being with my friends. And when you're with your friends, when you're deciding what you're going to do that evening, who's in charge? Are you a contributor, a supporter? How do you interact with them? And from that, we can start finding specific sets of skills that they are so natural at.
Right.
And then when they go to college, and I used to say this, I taught college for 20-some years, and I loved that a person could explore so many different things in a liberal arts college. That's not necessarily true anymore. They end up getting in there, they need to have a career track, or what are you going to major in? Switching means you're going to end up with this many more semesters, which increases the cost.
Yeah.
And it's no longer one of those places where they can go and explore. I grieve over that. So with that in mind, there's a lot of young people who are doing pre-college career counseling. I started a program for high school students. What do I do after college? Because they're worried about it.
Yeah.
Two, they're very concerned, and they don't want to make a mistake and end up somewhere that they hate. Who does?
Sure.
So I started this program called Career Definition. How do I define what the options are going to be so that they know I could go A, B, or C? I know how to watch them. I understand how to watch the market value of these. And I know that any one of them, I'm going to be able to shift along with it. So they know how to manage their career.
So as we wrap up, the final question for you, I think this is the final question. So I mentioned my daughter, and you mentioned Career Definition, and you work with a lot of young individuals in your practice. So what advice would you give my daughter about going to college, advice you'd give her about getting prepared to enter the workforce?
An excellent question. The youngest person I've worked with was in the 8th grade, but he was so worried. His father, a former client of mine, said, will you talk to my son? He's so concerned, so in he came. So we know that technology is only going to move forward. So someone comes into me and says, well, I always wanted to be a nurse. So, well, have you looked at the future of nursing technologies? Have you looked at whatever it is, add the technology piece to it? So if someone says relationship management, well, gone to a conference where you can download an app and know where everybody is in the huge, massive room that is a career manager or a wealth manager, and it automatically tells you where these people are and how you can meet them. So applications, figuring out how technology is going to implicate what they enjoy doing is going to be really important.
Very good.
And again, as I say, there are types of jobs that are never going to go away. Customer experience, for example. The whole thing of project management. Managing people is not going to go away. And as we look at 100 million millennials coming into the workforce, management is going to be critical in order to make this move forward.
Well, this was a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for joining me. So for individuals that are interested in getting your book, where could they find your book, Career Mageddon?
Simply go to the website and click on the picture of it. So that would be forwardmotioncareers.com.
Beautiful. Thank you again. For listeners, we will be back with you on an upcoming episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon. In the meantime, I would appreciate it greatly if you would share this and other podcasts with friends, family, and coworkers.